The wind howled across the open plains, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant fires. Emily hugged her knees to her chest, sitting on the worn wooden porch of her father's ranch. Nights had always been the hardest, quiet, lonely, and filled with memories that pricked at her heart like thorns. Her father's strict routines, though meant to prepare her for the harsh world, often left her feeling small and unseen. She whispered to herself, almost as if confessing a secret, "He trains me like this every night," her voice trembling in the empty night. The sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson. Emily shivered in the cold as she listened to the distant clip-clop of hooves. The ranch had always been a place of discipline, but tonight, there was a sense of anticipation she couldn't quite explain. Something in the air felt different. Her chest tightened as memories of lessons and lectures pressed down on her. She wanted guidance, yet she longed for freedom, a contradiction that twisted inside her. Footsteps approached, slow and steady. A shadow fell across the porch, and she looked up to see him. A tall, rugged cowboy with eyes like storm clouds, his presence commanding yet strangely comforting. He had been traveling across the county, delivering goods and helping those in need, but tonight, he had ridden straight to her home. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. Emily felt her heartbeat accelerate, unsure if she should speak or retreat into the shadows. He leaned closer, his voice low and steady. "You don't have to face it all alone," he said, offering a hand. It wasn't a gesture of judgment but of understanding. Emily hesitated, memories of strict rules and constant corrections flickering in her mind. Yet there was something different in his tone, a patience, a calm reassurance that she had never experienced. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, feeling a warmth spread through her that chased away the chill of the night. Her father's training had always been about strength and endurance, about surviving the hardships of life with resilience. But it had left Emily feeling isolated, as if her own emotions were mistakes to be corrected. The cowboy's presence challenged that. He seemed to recognize her fear, her quiet longing, without demanding she hide it. The vulnerability she had buried for years bubbled up, threatening to spill over in tears. For the first time, she felt seen not for her abilities, but for who she was. The night grew colder, and the moon rose high, casting silver light across the ranch. They walked together toward the stables, the rhythmic sound of his boots on the wooden floor grounding her. He spoke of simple things at first: horses, the land, the stars. Each word carried weight, yet lightness, a balance she had never known. Emily's tense muscles began to ease as she laughed softly at his stories, the sound foreign yet comforting in her own ears. For the first time in years, the burden on her chest felt lighter. Days turned into weeks, and the cowboy returned each evening. He didn't teach her survival skills like her father had. Instead, he showed her how to trust herself, how to lean on others without fear, and how to find joy in the small moments. Emily began to understand that courage wasn't only about physical endurance, it was about opening your heart, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and taking risks in love and life. The lessons were different, but the impact was profound. A sudden storm forced them to take shelter in the barn one night. Rain lashed against the roof, and the wind rattled the old boards. Emily's past fears crept back, the fear of failing, of not being enough, of being alone. The cowboy held a steady hand on her shoulder, anchoring her. "You've already survived so much," he said gently. "Now it's time to let yourself live." She nodded, feeling the weight of years of discipline and solitude slowly lift. For the first time, she let herself breathe freely. As the days passed, Emily discovered hidden parts of herself. She ran across the fields without hesitation, laughed without restraint, and spoke her mind with clarity she had never known. The cowboy encouraged her curiosity and celebrated each small triumph. The ranch, once a place of rigid rules, became a canvas for exploration, growth, and laughter. Even her father, initially wary of the outsider, noticed the change. Emily's confidence blossomed in ways he had never imagined possible. But life on the plains was never without hardship. One evening, a neighboring ranch caught fire, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. Emily and the cowboy rode together, working side by side to protect the livestock and neighbors. The chaos tested their trust, their strength, and their courage. Emily's hands were blistered, her clothes soaked with sweat and ash, but she felt alive, more alive than she had ever felt under her father's strict guidance. She realized courage wasn't just enduring, it was acting despite fear. Through the trials, a bond formed that went beyond simple companionship. The cowboy didn't replace the lessons her father had taught, but he complemented them with empathy, understanding, and patience. Emily began to see her past as the foundation of her resilience, not a chain that bound her. Each day, her heart grew lighter, her smile more genuine, and her laughter more frequent. The ranch was no longer a place of silent suffering, but of shared effort, trust, and hope. One night, under a sky blanketed with stars, the cowboy took her hand in his again. "You're ready," he said softly. Emily looked at him, heart swelling with a mix of fear and excitement. Ready for what? She wondered. Ready to trust, to live fully, and to open herself to love without hesitation. The words were simple, but the meaning was profound. She realized she had been trained not only to survive, but to thrive, and someone had shown her the path to do just that. Emily's father watched from the porch, silently observing. He had never seen his daughter glow like this, never witnessed her true potential shine through. Though he had meant well, his methods had been strict and unyielding. Now, he understood that guidance could take many forms, and that sometimes the greatest lessons were those learned through trust, compassion, and partnership. A tear slid down his cheek, not from regret, but from pride. The following weeks brought laughter, work, and shared evenings by the fire. The cowboy and Emily explored the hills, fished by the river, and even learned to dance in the barn under the soft glow of lanterns. Emily's life transformed, from constrained routines to spontaneous joy. The lessons her father had taught remained, but they were no longer burdens. She carried them with confidence and grace, blending discipline with the freedom she had found. One morning, a messenger arrived with news of a land dispute threatening her family's ranch. Emily and the cowboy faced it together, strategizing and negotiating with courage and tact. It was a test of everything she had learned, the resilience instilled by her father and the trust, patience, and insight taught by the cowboy. Together, they resolved the conflict peacefully, earning respect from neighbors and solidifying Emily's belief in herself. Evenings became their sanctuary. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything in gold, and they would sit side by side, sharing stories of past hardships and future dreams. Emily no longer felt the lonely ache that had haunted her nights. The cowboy's steady presence reminded her that she was not alone, and that her courage could manifest in love, action, and compassion. Each whispered conversation deepened her trust in her connection to the world around her. Emily began to write in a journal each night, documenting her growth, her fears, and her triumphs. It became a ritual, a space where her voice was honored and safe. The cowboy encouraged her reflections, often reading her entries aloud, celebrating her resilience, and pointing out how far she had come. The practice of sharing thoughts and feelings became a cornerstone of her transformation, bridging the gap between past loneliness and present fulfillment. Seasons changed, and with them came new challenges and joys. Harvests were bountiful, and neighbors sought their guidance in matters of ranching and life. Emily found herself taking the lead, confident in her decisions and assured in her judgment. The lessons of her youth had forged a foundation, but her own experiences had built a home for strength, trust, and love. She realized that life's difficulties could be met with grace when shared with someone who truly cared. One evening, as the wind carried the scent of autumn leaves, the cowboy and Emily sat atop a hill, watching the world below. She leaned against him, grateful for the calm that had finally settled in her heart. "I never imagined life could feel like this," she murmured. "Safe, free, and full of possibility." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "You made it through everything, Emily. You've earned this." The following months brought celebrations, friendships, and quiet moments of reflection. Emily no longer felt the weight of fear or loneliness pressing on her chest. She thrived in the balance of independence and companionship, discipline and freedom, past lessons and new experiences. The cowboy remained by her side, not as a rescuer, but as a partner, guiding her with love and respect. Together, they created a life that honored her resilience and embraced her joy. Emily's father eventually joined them, learning to appreciate the new path his daughter had taken. He saw her confidence, her laughter, and the light in her eyes, realizing that his lessons had been just one part of her journey. Respecting the cowboy's influence, he smiled with pride, acknowledging that courage and love often came from unexpected sources. Emily's heart swelled with gratitude, recognizing the complex weave of guidance and care that had shaped her. The ranch became a place of laughter, music, and shared work. Emily taught younger neighbors skills she had learned, blending her father's discipline with the cowboy's encouragement. She became a mentor, a friend, and a trusted figure, inspiring others to find their courage and joy. Her journey from sadness to strength became a beacon for those around her, proof that even the harshest nights could lead to sunrise. Storms came and went, but Emily faced each one with resolve. When lightning struck a tree near the barn, she acted quickly, rallying neighbors and ensuring everyone was safe. The cowboy watched with quiet pride, knowing she had internalized not only her father's lessons but also the empathy, courage, and decisiveness he had nurtured. She had transformed into a capable, strong, and compassionate woman, ready to meet life's challenges head-on. Winter brought snow that blanketed the plains in silence. Nights were long, but Emily no longer feared them. She would sit by the fire with the cowboy, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments of connection. The isolation that had once defined her life had been replaced with warmth, laughter, and partnership. She felt whole, not because the past had disappeared, but because she had learned to carry it with grace, resilience, and hope. Spring arrived with blooms and renewal. Emily planted a garden, laughing as the cowboy teased her about her green thumb. Their partnership had grown into something deeper, a friendship built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Emily realized that courage wasn't just about surviving her father's training, but about opening her heart to love, life, and the world around her. The plains, once vast and lonely, now felt like home. One bright afternoon, Emily and the cowboy rode across the hills, the wind whipping through their hair. She felt free, exhilarated, and alive in a way she never had before. The lessons of her past, the guidance of her father, and the steady presence of the cowboy had combined to create a life full of possibility. Each moment was a reminder that strength and love could coexist, and that happiness was something she had earned and could now embrace fully. As the sun set, Emily stood atop a ridge, gazing at the horizon. The world stretched before her, filled with challenges, joys, and unknown adventures. She felt no fear, only anticipation and hope. The cowboy stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on hers, a silent promise of partnership and unwavering support. She realized that the nights of fear and discipline had led her to this moment of triumph, courage, and peace. Their journey had been long and winding, but every hardship had shaped them. Emily had learned that trust, love, and courage were the true markers of strength. Her father's lessons had given her endurance, but the cowboy had shown her the power of heart and empathy. Together, they had transformed her life from a lonely struggle into a story of resilience, joy, and hope. She finally understood that she was never truly alone. Under a blanket of stars, Emily whispered her gratitude, not only for her own journey, but for the people who had walked it with her. The cowboy leaned closer, smiling, and she felt the warmth of trust and love envelop her. The plains no longer felt vast and intimidating, they were full of life, laughter, and promise. Emily had found her courage, her voice, and her joy, and she knew that the nights of the past had prepared her for this luminous, thriving life. Finally, Emily turned toward the cowboy, eyes shining with certainty and hope. "Thank you for showing me a different way," she said softly. He nodded, brushing a hand across hers, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had forged. The ranch, the lessons, the trials, they were all part of a tapestry that had led to this moment of peace, love, and fulfillment. Emily's heart, once heavy with fear, now soared with freedom and courage. The wind carried a gentle promise across the plains, and Emily breathed deeply, feeling fully alive for the first time in years. She had survived her father's strictness, embraced her own heart, and discovered the power of trust and partnership. The cowboy stood beside her, steady and kind, and together they watched the sun rise, symbolizing a new chapter filled with hope, laughter, and endless possibilities. The journey had been hard, but it had led to an ending brighter than she had ever imagined.